And thank you for joining Green Spoon Martyrs Cannabis Quick Hits. My name is Nick Richards. I'm your host today. And with me, I've got Irina Deshevsky, my co-host and co-partner in the cannabis practice. She is amazing, everyone. Let me just tell you that we are in for such a treat today. But before we jump into it, just let me say this. We're going to talk about some things today that are a little bit in an area that hasn't fully been established, and the laws could very much change quickly or down the road after this broadcast. So, just take that with a little bit of caution. The things we're talking about today are not very clear in the law, and they could change. Okay, so little disclaimer there for everybody. Our topic today is traveling with marijuana, and we're not recommending it. We're noticing that it's going on out there in the world, and we're noticing some people are getting in trouble for it, and it appears that a lot of people aren't. And so we're kind of trying to figure out sort of where's the guardrails here? What are the rules? What are the requirements? And so I've got Irina with me today. Irina, how are you?
Hey, Nick. Happy to be here. Doing well on this lovely Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, I know it's dog days of summer, right? We'll get through them, I think. Thanks so much for joining us. So, gosh, Irina, we saw Brittany Griner, right? Boy, got 9 years. That just seems amazing. I think that's shocking for most people here in the U.S. that could happen. And I think it really kind of draws some attention to the risk of traveling with cannabis. And so we'd kind of like to kind of explore that a little bit today. What's going on out there, Irina? Is it legal to travel with cannabis? What's the story?
In short, no, it's not. But as with everything cannabis, there's a lot of nuances and things to dissect within the broader commentary of don't travel with cannabis. And let's, funnel the conversation into airplane travel. You can obviously travel with cannabis in your car interstate as long as you are within the possession limits and depending on the state's laws and what those are and whether you can possess cannabis. But focusing on air travel and kind of what you mentioned with Brittany Griner, I think everybody, in adult use states that are of age and have and consume cannabis regularly could perhaps forget that it's not the same across the board and that level of comfort that you might feel in your home state needs to be checked, particularly when you're flying. So the rule is don't travel with cannabis. Airspace is federal space. Cannabis is a Schedule I drug per federal law, and you shouldn't be traveling with it. But what happens if you are caught with it, and all the various permutations of that are really, really not uniform. So depending on where you are, how much you have, you could be fine. It could go unnoticed, and I think largely it does. I will note that the TSA is tasked with finding things that could bring planes down, and cannabis is not one of those things. So the dogs you see at airport, they're not, trained to sniff out cannabis. They're focused on other items that, pertain to the safety of the aircraft. So, and same with TSA agents. That being said, if you have a large quantity of cannabis, and we kind of saw this recently with a former NBA player, I think his name is Iman Shumpert. He was recently arrested for a felony level possession of cannabis going from Dallas to LAX.
And that looked like that was a lot of cannabis, right?
Yeah, I've got it up right here. I think it was quite a bit of cannabis, and I think they called the local authorities, and where he was, adult use cannabis possession in Texas is not legal. The amount he had, and I don't know if he had a medical patient card or not, but regardless, the amount he had far exceeded what was allowable there. So even though, he was traveling to California and Los Angeles where adult use possession is legal, he was caught with it in a place where it wasn't.
And do you think he got caught going through the metal detector, basically? It seems.
It was at a TSA checkpoint.
Yeah, at a TSA checkpoint. So,
and they say a sizable amount of marijuana was found. What I think is interesting, and one of the questions and permutations I want to talk about is I think most people by now know that hemp is federally legal. And hemp is defined as something that is 0.3 THC or less. But anyone familiar with this really knows that hemp and cannabis look a lot alike. They smell alike. CBD products, pre-rolls, flower, smokable hemp flowers become popular lately. Edibles, all these things look a lot alike. And so the enforcement has got to, if you have to test the product to be sure whether it's hemp or cannabis. And if it's hemp, you're free to travel with it. So if you've got a gummy and by weight it's 0.3% THC or less, you're fine. Someone with a gummy that's, 5 grams or milligrams THC could have a really different, that's a cannabis gummy. They could have a different experience. But we don't really have anything set up to efficiently and effectively test that.
Right. It would seem to me that if you're traveling with hemp, it would be wise to have the packaging to show that it is hemp.
That's right. And I think cannabis products have become really sophisticated. So if you're traveling with a vape, it could be any kind of vape, right? It could be a tobacco vape, it could be a hemp vape, it could be a cannabis vape, but it's oil. So it's even harder to tell. You really have to test it. And then gummies, mints, candies, chocolates. I think largely it's going to be really hard to discern those products because some are perfectly fine to travel with.
Yeah. What about, okay, so we have a problem with what is marijuana and what is hemp. And then what about interstate travel? Can I jump on an airplane here in Denver and fly to Durango, Colorado? Is that now okay? Or is that also federal airspace TSA violation?
So it's federal airspace. All airspace is. So even if you're going inside a state where adult use is legal and you're in the possession amount, you are taking on some risk. But I would say that risk's, again, a little varied. One is that TSA folks are federal employees. And so they could catch you and they could make you discard it. Fine. They could call the authorities. I think the chances of enforcement by a Colorado authority, if you're within the state with the legal possession amount, are really, really low. They're not going to waste, the state's attorney general's time with enforcing that possession. And I don't even know, I guess the claim would even be that you almost entered federal airspace with it.
Right.
You didn't. So I think, I don't see that on the risk levels of things not to be doing. Highest, don't go to Russia with cannabis, as well as like other countries with draconian laws and penalties for that. And then, we go down to like intrastate adult use travel. Yeah.
Yeah. We hear in Colorado, we hear a lot about people driving to Kansas. And if they have Colorado license plates, that Kansas police like to pull them over. And so we hear about a lot of that kind of stuff, but the air travel is sort of a new one here. And I think we looked into a little bit of different airports, and airports have policies around this. But Irina, they were not uniform, were they?
No, I think they're quite varied, just talking about the big ones. And, correct me if I'm wrong on anything on this one, but LAX, New York, and Chicago airports have all announced policies that basically say, look, we're not going to stop any outbound passengers for possession of an ounce or less of marijuana. These are all adult use markets now. Again, where you're going and what happens to you there or in between, I think you're really taking on some risk, and that risk factor varies. I know that in Chicago, we have amnesty boxes. And so those allow you to discard, and someone that I was talking to, about this issue recently, had a keen observation. The amnesty boxes actually come after the TSA checkpoint. So they're not like, hey, I've entered O'Hare, and before I go through TSA, here's a box where I can discard my stuff. And the person I was talking to was like, well, that's basically useless because you've gotten away with it. And I would say the point there is TSA didn't catch it. That's not their primary objective, is to catch your cannabis. But think about where you're going and think about whether you want to trigger federal law and violate it by having cannabis interstate and in federal airspace. And so it's probably like on you to consider discarding that product.
This is not a little off topic, but if you get through that checkpoint, can you go down to the smoking lounge? I don't know. You wonder if those airports that are allowing you to do that, that could be interesting. And then I saw that DIA has a no travel policy. That was kind of surprising for me being here in Colorado. Clearly, airports where where it remains state legal are a bigger problem, I would think. But no clear pathway here except for, hey, look, it's illegal. You should all know that. Now there may be some variations in which the local authorities handle that, but bottom line, it's illegal to take it to the airport. Sounds like what I'm
hearing. It's illegal to travel and cross states or even be up in the air with it, for sure. And as we discussed, I think the risk profile changes depending on how much you have, what type you have, right? Something that's in a mint box and looks like a mint is unlikely to trip anything. And then where you're going. Right.
And look, if you're going from one cannabis legal state to another cannabis legal state, buy it when you get there, right? That seems like an easy one to me.
I think be prudent. It's one of those things where there's a tension between state laws and the federal law. Yeah. And we'd all, I think, like to see the things at the federal level relent and recognition of this thriving industry that creates jobs and opportunities and in many cases medicinal products for folks. And it's got huge bipartisan support, state after state's coming online with some form of marijuana program. So I think hopefully the federal government catches up. And once it does, we'll probably have some more uniformity on the travel situation.
Irina, you're awesome. I always appreciate hearing from you and learning from you. Thank you so much for your time today. Everyone, Green Spoon Martyrs Quick Hits, bringing what you need to know about the cannabis industry right into your living room. We really hope that this has been useful. Irina, any little special thing you want to leave us with?
No, I think just be smart, travel safe, stay away from Russia when you've got cannabis.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.